Once we have established the layout we are going to use for the application, we must create the main section where the different controls are going to be placed. This we're going to do it using an element type frame. Then let's indicate that we want to use a frame. We're going to specify a margin to establish a distance between the right and the left part with respect to the frame control. I'm going to complete some properties. Let's specify the value center for the vertical options since we want the frame to be centered, and we're going to close this tag to see how it looks in the application. If we return to the emulator, we can see that we already have here the frame centered exactly. And inside the frame is where we're going to place the different controls. I'm going to explain quickly what this property called margin refers to. This property refers to the distance of the control itself in relation to the element that is containing it. In this case, we are indicating that we want to leave a distance of 10 units both left and right. And these values that we see marked here are indicating what is the value of the left margin, what is the value of the top margin, what is the value of the margin to the right, and what is the value of the margin for the bottom of the control. Once we have explained this, we will proceed to define the different controls that will be placed inside the frame. If you remember the application we saw, it accommodated the different elements vertically from top to bottom, and they all looked stacked, one below the other. Therefore, we can use a layout that we have already seen called vertical stack layout, which is optimized to display elements stacked vertically. We can indicate that we want a spacing between each of the elements of 15 units, and we will also indicate that we want the vertical options equal to center. As first visual element, let's indicate that we need a label control. Let's specify, for example, that we want the text to be in bold and that the font size property is equal to large, since we will use this label control to display the name of the application. We will also indicate that we want to center the text. And finally, let's indicate that the text is going to be the name of the application, which is Color Maker. We close this label, we save the changes, and here we can see already this label that is being shown inside the frame element. The next step is to create the different sliders that will allow us to select a value for each of the colors. Let's go back to the XAML file and define a slider control. Let's give it a name. We're going to indicate that the name is SLD red. Let's define the colors for each of the elements of the slider. That is to say, let's define thumb color, and let's use the colors that we have defined previously. Let's write then a static resource, and let's use the primary color. Let's indicate that we want a value for maximum track color equal to the tertiary color. And finally, for minimum track color, let's use the secondary color. Let's close this tag, and we already have the first slider with the colors applied that we have specified. The only problem is that the user cannot know what each slider refers to, so we will create a label control before the slider element to explain to the user what color will be selected, in this case the red value. Let's close this label, save the changes, and here we can see the label that is telling us that we're going to modify the red color for the color generation. I am going to proceed to copy this pair of labels so that we don't have to type everything again, and let's proceed to change the text to green. Let's also change the X name to SLD green and leave the same colors for the properties. Let's do this one more time to specify that we are also going to use a blue color. Let's change the name once more to SLD blue. And we already have the controls that will allow us to carry out the combination of red, green and blue colors. The next step is to define the section where the generated hexadecimal value will appear and the button that will allow us to copy what that value is. We're going to place ourselves inside the vertical stack layout, and after this slider element, we're going to proceed to indicate that we want a control frame. We're going to place a corner radius equal to 25 so that it has a rounding in the corners. Let's set the horizontal options equal to center. And as we are going to locate the element that is going to show us the hexadecimal value next to an image button, we will use a horizontal stack layout, and inside let's place a label control, to which we will assign a name equal to LVLX. Let's also indicate that we want to place the text at the end of the label, and we will specify a text equal to X value. And we will place an initial color equal to black in hexadecimal format. Finally, let's set the vertical options equal to center, and let's see how this looks in the emulator. We can already see here the frame element with the specified label, and let's proceed to add the button that will allow us to copy the hexadecimal value. Then, after the label element, we're going to indicate that we want an image button. We will indicate some additional properties, such as a margin to position this button a little away from the label. We will indicate that the other values will be equal to 0. We will also specify a height request to specify a height of this button equal to 25. The image that we're going to use is called copy.svj, which we will set in the source property, and also set the vertical options value equal to center. Finally, the width request value will be equal to 25. And we can already see the space where the image button should be, only as we have not added the image to the project, we cannot see it. I am going to drag the image that you are going to be able to find as part of the resources of the course, and I am going to place it in the resources folder and in this specific folder called images. Once I've copied the image into the project, let's restart the application. And here we can see that we already have the image button with the specified image. Finally, we're going to proceed to create the button that will allow us to generate a random color. For it, we're going to position ourselves after the frame element, but before the closing tag of the vertical stack layout. Let's create a new button. Let's specify a name equal to btn random. Let's also specify a background color equal to the primary color, and a text equal to generate random color. Let's close the label. And with this, we have defined the main graphical interface of the application. The next step is to proceed to code the functionality.